Good morning, friends. Today it's time to talk about a subject that is near and dear to my heart, and that is double rows of teeth. So if you're familiar with this concept, most of you probably heard about it around 2014, 2015, which was when the television program Search for the Lost Giants with the Vieira brothers was on the History Channel. This was a show that kind of pushed this notion of an ancient race of giants with double rows of teeth kind of out into the public. Though it was around before then in books, I first remember, this is the book that brought it to my attention, Worlds Before Our Own by Brad Steiger, 1978. I got this book when I was a teenager, I think, or maybe in college I was exposed to it. I'm trying to find this. I should have marked the page before I started. I'm not that organized, though. So here we go, page 60. This is at least one of them. He's talking about quote-unquote mound builders, skeletons. Do giant mounds indicate giant people, enormous weapons? Something about Minnesota, La Crescent, Minnesota, bones of men of huge stature. The skulls in the latter find were said to have had receding foreheads and teeth that were double all the way around. So double all the way around is not the same as double rows of teeth. However, all that double stuff gets thrown together by the giantology people. I'm going to discuss double teeth all around and double teeth in another video, and he got it from a newspaper account from the mid to late 1800s. And that's where a lot of these other books, I mean, there's Jim Vieira's and Hume Newman's book. There's this white supremacist take on your giants. This is one of the worst books ever. A lot of these just have the same newspaper accounts in them. Fritz Zimmerman has a couple. When the internet came along, it was possible to kind of go out and mine for accounts of giants in these old newspaper clippings. You didn't have to go to the library and look for the microfilm and find them that way. You could just search and they would come up, and there were all these databases, Library of Congress, Chronicling America. So people were able to assemble for the first time hundreds of these accounts of people digging up giant skeletons and describing them, among other things, as having a double row of teeth. So that's a really interesting pattern, and that's the one that Jim and his brother picked up on for their show, and that a lot of these books are kind of based on. That not only are these skeletons described as unusually tall, but they also had physical characteristics that would suggest that they are not humans like us. And this fit into the Nephilim idea. It plays into the mound builder myth, which is that the mounds of eastern North America, which is where most of these skeletons were being reported from, were built by somebody other than Native Americans. So it kind of feeds into all that. I got interested in it because the pattern is real. Like those are real accounts. Nobody is faking these newspaper stories from the mid 1800s. So what did they mean? And here I think it's interesting, and we'll get to it. I'm going to tell you what they mean. But first, I want to talk a little bit about how science is done. I am a scientist. When I see a pattern like that, me and other people can formulate an explanation to take all of those facts, those newspaper stories, and come up with an explanation for them. If you're on the pseudoscience or pseudoarchaeology side, you feel free often to just stop at that explanation and say, I have induced this general explanation for all of these facts, and that's my story, and I'm going with it. However, science, at least the way I conceive science being done, is a loop. You've got an inductive side and a deductive side. The inductive side is looking at all your facts, looking at your giant newspaper clippings, inducing a general explanation. If you want to do science, you have to then try to test that explanation and see whether it is right or wrong. You have to give yourself a chance to test those ideas and see if they hold up to scrutiny. So the explanation that the giantologists and the lost civilization people and Nephilim people came up with for all of these newspaper articles is that these are pointing to a physically distinct race of some kind of humanoid species that built the mounds and is related to the giants of the Bible and all that.
One of the ideas that kind of really shocked us and challenged us was this, partly to do with these double rows of teeth, is the fact that the anatomic anomalies.
With double rows of teeth found, 8 feet high, double rows of teeth, skull as big as a peck basket.
Get this. They tend to have double rows of teeth, 6 fingers, 6 toes, and like humans, came in different races.
And that's what those books are built on. Me, as an anthropologist and a scientist, looks at those accounts and thinks, okay, that's one explanation. What's another one? So I started digging around to find one. And after I tell you my explanation, I'm going to give you a few things that you can do to prove me wrong if you would like to. So what I learned when I started collecting these accounts and trying to figure out what they meant is there is a pattern through time. So actually there are two patterns. One is the reporting of finding of giant skeletons, which is kind of a early, say, 1830s to 1910, 1920 kind of phenomenon in this country. Notice it starts around the time of the removal of Native Americans from the eastern woodlands and a lot of these mounds being dug into, and they're trying to make the case that there was a race that built these mounds that were not Native American. So it goes along with the Native American genocide and Indian removal and all that stuff. So it starts in, like, say, 1820, 1830, it peaks in the late 1800s, and then it drops off again, 1910s, 1920s. That's one pattern. Number two is the use of the phrase, which is, of course, the critical thing here, and that is double rows of teeth. Now, do not get that conflated with the phrase double teeth all around, double teeth front and back. It's related to teeth, but it's separate. Double there does not mean the same thing. It means something distinctive, and I will get into that in another video. So the phrase double rows of teeth was really, really commonly used during the same period that these giant skeletons were being found. However, it was used in all kinds of cases that have nothing to do with giant skeletons. So those cases provide us with clues and an alternative explanation for what those accounts were saying. The phrase double rows of teeth was used to describe living individuals. It was used to describe animals. It was used to describe inanimate objects like a comb and a rake. Here's a story about some guy. This was printed in a newspaper in 1933, so kind of late for use of the phrase, but Manhattan's reigning grand old man, Colonel G. Crichton Webb, blah, 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 blah. His firm double row of teeth are without a single filling, and he has the springy gait of an athlete. Here's somebody named Roxy Stinson, who was apparently involved in the Teapot Dome scandal. 1924. The mouth is attractive, firm, and closely set when she is serious, but the slightest smile reveals a beautiful double row of teeth, fit for a dental paste advertisement. I have doctored the photo. 1913 article, Jack Johnson, champion pugilist heavyweight. The big fighter wore his famous broad smile, showing his double row of teeth for the first time in many weeks as he walked up the gangplank of the steamer. Oh, here in 1907, you could buy a double row of teeth. A double row of teeth can be had at the usual cost of a single set. Our prices are just about half that charged by many dentists. Who do we have here? Actress Helen Lowell, 1905 article. And Miss Lowell parted her plump lips and showed as brilliant a double row of teeth as ever shown in any face. Of course, Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt, come on. Didn't care a continental nor a colonial curse for him, his big stick, his double row of teeth, or ferocious mouth. There's your double row of teeth right there. So here's a couple for your inanimate objects file. Here's an advertisement for a rake, 1895. It may be seen from the picture that the rake differs from the ordinary pattern in having a double row of teeth, which the inventor claims will enable the gardener to do twice as much work with it. Why not put a triple row in? I mean, then you're really... A 1902 story describes this comb here as having a double row of teeth. So we've got one row on this side and one row on this side. That's your double row. So when our ears hear that phrase, double rows of teeth, we assume mostly that it means like layers of teeth, like in a shark's mouth, where you have one row of teeth in front and then another row of teeth in back. When it is used in these newspaper articles, it very, very clearly is talking about the two rows of teeth. One is an upper row of teeth and one is a lower row of teeth. You have to remember that dental health in the 1800s was not great, so remarking on somebody's beautiful double row of teeth was a way to describe something that was a little bit unusual about their appearance. There wasn't like a bunch of gaps in there from teeth missing. It was a beautiful, complete double row of teeth. And you see this over and over and over again. So when these reports mention a double row of teeth, they're not talking about some anatomical anomaly of having layers of teeth that humans don't have. They're talking about having an upper row of teeth and a bottom row of teeth that are remarkable to look at in the sense that they are different. And you also have to remember when lay people look at skeletons, like, you can recognize parts of the skull, you can see the eye orbits, You understand what the teeth are because the teeth are the only part of the skeleton that are outside of the body, so we all see them every day. So that's one of the characteristics that they're going to remark upon. Dental health was much better among pre-contact Native Americans, especially during the Woodland and Archaic period, than it was among Euro-Americans living in the mid-1800s because they weren't eating processed sugars. They were eating wild plant and animal foods. So you often would have people with perfect double row of teeth with no cavities that had all of their teeth in place. They were nice looking, and people were able to recognize those because, they're not going to say, well, his ulna was a little bit different shaped than a human ulna, because they don't know what the ulna looks like. They've never seen it because it's inside the body. The teeth are outside the body. So it's a natural thing for people to remark upon. So that's, I think, the reason why you see people remarking upon the teeth and the size of the skull, because they feel like it's something that they can competently identify and remark upon and describe. And they're using the phrase double row of teeth because it was an idiom of the time to remark upon somebody having a nice double row of teeth. And I can give you, probably by this point in the video, I have given you examples. I don't know. I edit these things later. And think about idioms that have to do with biology. All the weird phrases that we use to describe aspects of somebody's appearance or ability or physiology, that if you take them literally, they sound really strange. But if you know that it's an idiom, then we know what they mean. He has a glass jaw. Does he really have a glass jaw? He's double jointed. You ever heard that one? It means somebody's flexible. It does not mean they have two sets of joints. He has eyes in the back of his head. What else? 4 eyes. Abs of steel. He's two-faced. Does he really have 2 faces? No. Could we describe somebody as two-faced? Yes. Would we be silly to think that they literally meant that he had 2 faces? Yes, we would. Okay, I'm going to try to keep this short because I guarantee you this will not be the last thing I say. I have a whole reservoir of this stuff on my blog. I spent a lot of time looking into this. This is probably, if I had to name my 2 contributions to the field of understanding pseudoarchaeology, this is one, and the other one was the giant smackdown of Swordgate, which, if you don't know what that is, boy, have I got a story for you. Anyway, back to the loop of science. We've got all these numerous accounts of giant skeletons with double row of teeth from the mid to late 1800s. The pseudoscience people, their explanation is that's a sign that there was a kind of non-human race present and building all of these things, and that, there's all the cover-ups that go along with it and all that. So that's one possible explanation. My explanation is that it's a linguistic idiom, and that's why it appears so often in these accounts during the same time period. It's kind of a temporal coincidence that this idiom tracks along with the finds of giant skeletons. And so you end up with this, what appears to be a correlation. And not only is it just linguistics, it's from a specific time period, say 1830 to 1930, and it's in a specific place. It's in North America. So as a scientist, I can derive expectations from my explanation and from the other explanation, the pseudoscience one. So I'm going to give you 3 challenges if you want to prove me wrong on this. I say it's language, and I say it's language that's limited to a certain time and a place, or it has a distribution that peaks in a certain time and place. So prove me wrong. I say inside a certain geographical space and a certain time period. So find me an account outside of 1830 to 1930, North America, that talks about giants with double rows of teeth. Find me that. And a primary account, not somebody just repeating an account later on from that kind of central period. So that's number 1. Number 2, you see this all the time, that it's giants with double rows of teeth and 6 fingers and 6 toes. So the polydactyly thing, they're combining with double rows of teeth and saying that's how you identify giants.
Many giant skeletons that have been found had 6 fingers and 6 toes. And get this, a lot of the giant skeletons unearthed also had double rows of teeth.
They tend to have a double row of teeth, 6 fingers, 6 toes.
One of the skeletons from Rob's photo collection had 6 fingers. Also, a second row of teeth seemed to be common amongst the giants found.
They tend to have double rows of teeth, 6 fingers, 6 toes.
Nowhere in the Bible does it talk about double rows of teeth or how many teeth giants have. Nowhere. So find me an instance where there is a report of an actual skeleton that has both quote-unquote double rows of teeth and 6 fingers, 6 toes. You see this repeated over and over again, that this is the mark of the Nephilim. And how do we know that? These people have put this construction together in their heads, never understanding that these are two separate things, and they think that they should go together, but they're not in the Bible anywhere. Find me where they are together. Find me. So that's number 2. Oh, and number 3, with all of these skeletons, find me what double rows of teeth look like. Find me one example. There should be pictures of double rows of teeth from somewhere, right? The Smithsonian doesn't confiscate all the bones from all over the world from even before the Smithsonian existed. So where's one? Where's one example of what a literal double row of teeth looks like in your conception? Find one. And by the way, this one doesn't count. This is actually some kind of special effects shot or manipulated image or something from the Search for the Lost Giants TV show to promote it. And you see this now blurred and scratchy to, I guess, to try to make it look like it's older archival or something. It's not. So that doesn't count. Also, I don't want to see a picture of somebody's mouth that has some supernumerary teeth or even a double row of teeth, because that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a skeleton where you say this occurred. And I don't want to see this picture that I see all the time of this is showing teeth that are erupted, the baby teeth, and then the adult teeth are, the bone is cut away so you can see the adult teeth coming in. That's a perfectly normal human right there. Also not double rows of teeth. So there's your 3 things. Find me an example outside of 1830 to 1930 and outside of North America that talks about a giant skeleton with double rows of teeth. Find me an account that talks about 6 fingers, 6 toes, and double rows of teeth in a skeleton, like a primary account, not one of these mishmashed put together ones from the last 10 or 15 years. And then find me that smoking gun evidence that shows me that this stuff was actually real. That should be easy. Should be easy for you, because there are hundreds of these things and they were so common, right? Everybody was finding them like it's this pattern. So prove it. Prove it. That's all I've got to say about double rows of teeth today. It will not be the last time we talk about this. Like I said, I wrote a lot about this stuff on my blog, and I went through a lot of different cases, and I see some of those popping up still on YouTube videos and people getting things really, really wrong about them. So it would be nice to try to set the record straight on that. But this is what I've got for today. So have a good rest of your weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.